Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Hare Krishna, Manasi Ganga Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Is it just the two of us right now?
Yeah, maybe we can start with the prayers, and as we go along,
People will add.
we'll see how things go. Yeah. Om Agyan Mirandhasya
Shalakaya Chakshu Uminitanyana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha
Sri Chaitanya
Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale
Swayam
Swayam Rupa
Rupa
Mayam Tatanti Svapadantikam Vachakapatrubhyacha Kripasintu Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayan Namaskritya Narottamam Tato Yadayat Nastat Parasapatresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki.
So we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 2, text 32 to 35 today. So would you like to read, Mataji?
Yeah, do you want to do the first two and I'll do the next two?
Sure. Text 32. Tad Brahma Paramam Shuddham Sattam Partma Sanatanam Vigrahya Yata Pashandam Daivam Yo Yatra Bhutarat. Translation: by blaspheming the principles of the Vedas, which are the pure and supreme path of the saintly persons, certainly you followers of Bhutapati, Lord Shiva, will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Lord Shiva is described as Bhutarat, the ghosts, and those who are situated in the material mode of ignorance are called Bhutas. So Bhutarat refers to the leader of the creatures who are in the lowest standard of the material modes of nature. Another meaning of Bhuta is anyone who has taken birth or anything which is produced. So in that sense, Lord Shiva may be accepted as the father of this material world. Here, of course, Brigamuni takes Lord Shiva as the leader of the lowest creatures. The characteristics of the lowest class of men have already been described. They do not bathe, they have long hair on their heads, and they are addicted to intoxicants. In comparison with the path followed by the followers of Bhutarat, the Vedic system is certainly excellent, for it promotes people to spiritual life as the highest eternal principle of human civilization. If anyone decries or blasphemes the Vedic principles, then he falls to the standard of atheism. I believe Ruchi Mataji has also joined. No, I didn't see
I've
her.
also joined. This is Govardhan Leela.
Hare Krishna, Govardhan
Hare
Leela.
Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada.
Is this Leela Manjari?
Yes, yes. I'm sorry. Yesterday I was at the funeral, so I could not um, like attend the class.
I wasn't on the class yesterday either.
Mm,
Remember, I don't get on Wednesdays anymore.
yeah, yeah. Mm.
No,
So
I thought that you wanted me to have you reading on Friday
yes, yes,
instead of,
that's true. So today we
okay.
are doing like a group reading.
Oh, okay. So this is a group reading today. Okay.
Yeah. So would you like to read text 33?
Sure, Mataji. Well, since you have it up, I can read it from there, from the,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Maitreya uvacha tasyevam vadatta shapam rogo sabhagavan bhava nishchakrama tata kinchid vimana iva sanugaha. You have to bring it down because, thank you. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter-cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Brigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. Purport. Here, Lord Shiva's excellent character is described. In spite of the cursing and counter-cursing between the parties of Daksha and Shiva, because he is the greatest Vaishnava, he was so sober that he did not say anything. A Vaishnava is always tolerant, and Lord Shiva is considered the topmost Vaishnava, so his character, as shown in this scene, is excellent. He became morose because he knew that these people, both his men and Dakshas, were unnecessarily cursing and counter-cursing one another without any interest in spiritual life. From his point of view, he did not see anyone as lower or higher because he is a Vaishnava. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.18, Pandita Samadarshina, one who is perfectly learned does not see anyone as lesser or greater because he sees everyone from the spiritual platform. Thus, the only alternative left to Lord Shiva was to leave in order to stop his follower Nandishvara as well as Brigumuni from cursing and counter-cursing in that way.
Anasthi Mataji, would you like to read?
Okay. 34. Tepi vispa stricha satram sahasra paripattasaran samvidhaya maheshvasha yatreja yatreja risabu hari. Translation. The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years, for sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the stalwart personalities who generate the entire population of the world are interested in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead by offering sacrifices. The Lord also said in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhaktaram Yagna Tapasam. One may engage in performing sacrifices and severe austerities for perfection, but they are all meant to satisfy the Supreme Lord. If such activities are performed for personal satisfaction, one is involved in vasanda or atheism. But when they are performed for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, one is following the Vedic principle. All the assembled sages performed sacrifices for 1,000 years.
Yeah. Anyone can read the last one.
Is Richie, Richie, are you interested?
No, I think it's just the three of us. I somehow felt Ruchi Mataji joined, but probably it was not hers.
Okay, I'll read 35. Aplutya Vapritam Yatra Ganga Yamuna Yandita Virajana Mana Sarve Svan Svan Dama Yayastataha. Translation. My dear Vidura, carrier of bows and arrows, all the demigods who were performing the sacrifice took their bath at the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna after completing the yagna performance. Such a bath is called avabrita snana. After thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their respective abodes. Purport. After Lord Shiva and previously Daksha left the arena of sacrifice, the sacrifice was not stopped. The sages went on for many years in order to satisfy the Supreme Lord. The sacrifice was not destroyed for want of Shiva and Daksha, and the sages went on with their activities. In other words, it may be assumed that if one does not worship the demigods, even up to Lord Shiva and Brahma, one can nevertheless satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.20. Kamais tais tair irta yana prapadyante anya devataha. Persons who are impelled by lust and desire go to the demigods to derive some material benefit. Bhagavad Gita uses the very specific words nasti buddhihi, meaning persons who have lost their sense of or intelligence. Only such persons care for demigods and want to derive material benefit from them. Of course, this does not mean that one should not show respect to the demigods, but there is no need to worship them. One who is honest may be faithful to the government, but he does not need to bribe the government servants. Bribery is illegal. One does not bribe a government servant, but that does not mean that one does not show him respect. Similarly, one who engages in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord does not need to worship any demigod, nor does he have any tendency to show disrespect to the demigods. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 9.23, it is stated, Yapi Anya Devata Bhakta Yajanti Shraddhayam Vitaha. The Lord says that anyone who worships the demigods is also worshiping him, but he is worshiping Avidhi Purvakam, which means without following the regulative principles. The regulative principle is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Worship of demigods may indirectly be worship of the personality of Godhead, but it is not regulated. By worshiping the Supreme Lord, one automatically serves all the demigods because they are parts and parcels of the whole. If one supplies water to the root of a tree, all the parts of the tree, such as the leaves and branches, are automatically satisfied. And if one supplies food to the stomach, all the limbs of the body, the hands, legs, fingers, etc., are nourished. Thus, by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can satisfy all the demigods. But by worshiping all the demigods, one does not completely worship the Supreme Lord. Therefore, worship of the demigods is irregular, and it is disrespectful to the scriptural injunctions. In this age of Kali, it is practically impossible to perform the Deva Yagna, or sacrifices to the demigods. As such, in this age, Srimad Bhagavatam recommends Sankirtanan Yagna. Yagna Sankirtana Prayer Yajanti hi Sumed Hasaha. Bhagavad Gita 11, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:532. In this age, the intelligent person completes the performance of all kinds of yagnas simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tasmin tuste jagat tusta. When Lord Vishnu is satisfied, all the demigods who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord are satisfied. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Daksha Curses Lord Shiva.
Wow, we finished another chapters. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mataji's, I will speak a little bit in the beginning because after that I have something going on. I will not be able to speak after. Um, so, I was not there yesterday, but I believe it's the cursing and counter cursing of the Brahmanas who had come to perform the yagya for Daksha, and the followers of Lord Shiva. So it's a very, very interesting chapter. I found it to be very interesting because these personalities are on a very, very high platform. Um, Lord Shiva is considered only next to Lord Vishnu, and Daksha was also not an ordinary personality. He was the son of Lord Brahma, and he was also the father of mankind. So it's and this is not Kali Yuga. So this was way, way, way early in the beginning of creation. So even during that time, there was conflict between different personalities, and I was, in one sense, like very much able to relate this pastime to my personal interaction with devotees, because sometimes we may not curse devotees, but there is conflict even within a society of devotees, and this definitely was like very strong, the opposition between these two parties, because they were condemning each other to become atheists, and materialists. So both of them are actually bereft, both atheists as well as materialists are bereft of spiritual or transcendental knowledge and happiness. So that's pretty strong for a soul to be bereft of transcendental knowledge and for a soul to be bereft of transcendental happiness. So Lord Shiva's followers were cursed to become atheists, and the followers of Daksha were cursed to become materialists, like who would only search out meaning from the flowery language of the Vedas, but will not be able to um, uh, absorb the essence of the Vedas. So very strong curses. And Prabhupada says in many places in the purports that actually we can see that manifesting in Kali Yuga, because even those who are born in priestly families and Brahminical families, they may not avail the opportunity to develop their transcendental knowledge. They might just simply get lost in making money to protect their bodies, preserve their bodies, and maintain their bodies. And the followers of Shiva were cursed to become atheists, and that's what we see, that the followers of Shankaracharya, although they study the Vedas, but still at a deep level they do not accept the personality of the Lord. They just believe that he is everything is coming from nothing and it will end in nothing, and it will all become one. So basically, it's a very much an atheistic approach to the entire Vedas. So this is the curse, and and one thing that is very much um, described by Srila Prabhupada, pointed by Srila Prabhupada in this purports, is that Lord Shiva, he was there when Daksha cursed him, and he saw the counter arguments and curses between these two parties. But because he was completely on a transcendental platform, this whole entire behavior did not please him at all. He just walked out of the arena um, without saying anything. So and Prabhupada also like ends the whole section very nicely by saying actually that the transcendental principle means that it doesn't matter whether Lord Brahma was there, Daksha was there, or Lord Shiva was there, but still sacrifice can be continued because it's always offered to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And this is such an important point that Prabhupada makes through many places throughout his books, because especially in India, worship of the demigods is very prevalent. They may not have studied the Vedas, but they do believe in something higher. And because they hear from their friend or mother or father, whoever they are worshipping, they just go and worship them. Sometimes they're not even demigods, they are just made up characters. So Prabhupada points out again and again that the worship of the Supreme Lord Vishnu is only the bona fide form of worship. Anything else below that, like even the worship of great demigods like Brahma or Lord Shiva, of course Brahma is not worshipped, um, but even great demigods is actually not prescribed anywhere in the um, or it is prescribed in the Vedas, but it is not the conclusive understanding. It's not the absolute understanding, because all sacrifices should be directed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and He is the Yageshwara. He is the proper recipient of all sacrifices. And Prabhupada also says that if he is worshipped, then everybody else will be satisfied. And this analogy is also very prominent, which he gives many times, that if we water the root of the plant, then the rest of the plant also feels nourished. So, this principle can also be applied in the life of a devotee, that if we just try to satisfy Lord Vishnu, then everybody else will become satisfied. And the more we apply this principle within our life, we can feel it, that it's actually true. When we try to please the Supreme Lord, then everybody else also becomes satisfied. So, um, yeah, thank you for allowing me to share. And then I'm going to mute myself and listen to the rest of the discussion.
Okay, I guess in tech, well, Leela Mandry gave a very nice, thank you for that very nice introduction and kind of, you know, going over what has happened up to this point. And it is interesting. Since this was, I didn't know this was not in Kali Yuga, that, you know, this type of conflict was going on, this cursing and counter cursing of each other. But in this text 33, it kind of, Prabhupada was showing the character of Lord Shiva in spite of what was going on. Now they're going back and forth, cursing and counter cursing each other. But it says that Lord Shiva was such a great Vaishnava that he just didn't say anything. He didn't get himself involved. In fact, he felt pretty morose about the whole thing. And, you know, being a Vaishnava, he was tolerant. And so his character, again, as we see it in this particular scene, was excellent. And he knew that all of this cursing and counter cursing was unnecessary and that there was no interest in spiritual life. So from his point of view, he didn't see anybody as, you know, higher or lower. The way, you know, the way they were talking to each other was pretty bad. And so it's not, when you are really a learned person, speaking from a spiritual perspective, if you're truly learned, you don't see anybody as greater or lesser than yourself. And so the only thing Lord Shiva could do was to leave so that he could stop himself from, you know, he could stop this cursing and counter cursing that was going on. That was text 34. I don't know. Ganga Mataji, did you want to explain 34, 35, or did you want me to explain, or one of them and maybe you explain the next one? I don't know.
Yeah, do you want to continue and I'll explain 35?
Okay. All right. So, now I'm not sure. It says all the progenitors of the universal population executed a sacrifice for thousands of years. And for sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. You know, I'm wondering, this, Leela Mandry, you were saying, I don't know if you're still there, but you were saying that this was probably right at the beginning of creation. But was it not in Dvapara Yuga when sacrifice was the yagya of the, or the you know, the form of the Yuga Dharma at that time? I don't know, but it just seems here that it says that just to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should offer sacrifices. So this obviously is not Kali Yuga. Now I see it because of the yagyas that were being performed. And the Lord says it in Bhagavad Gita 5:29 that you can perform sacrifices and severe austerities for perfection. but they have to be done just as in Kali Yuga, our devotional service, our Sankirtan, etc., our chanting of the holy name. All of this needs to be done to satisfy the Lord and not for a personal satisfaction. And so at that time, if all of this was performed, all these activities, these austerities, etc., yagyas were performed for personal satisfaction, and Prabhupada said this was considered atheism. But if they were performed to satisfy the Supreme Lord, then they were following all the Vedic principles. Okay, and all of the sages who were present at that gathering had performed sacrifices for 1,000 years. So am I right, Manasi Ganga? Isn't it Dvapara Yuga where yagyas were the most, I can't remember the
I
order.
believe so. I believe so. Right. I think so. I need to learn that. Those 4 different.
Because the first in Satya Yuga, I thought it was meditation.
Meditation, that's what I was thinking.
For thousands of years sometimes, and they could do it.
Mhm.
They were qualified to do that. And then, oh, wait a minute, maybe it was the next Yuga, Satya. One of them was deity worship. I don't
Which
know
is
if it
the
was
one right before Kali Yuga. So it's the second one that was sacrifices and yagnas.
Okay. So it wasn't
Yeah.
Dvapara Yuga. It was, it was Satya Yuga, and what's the next one? Satya and, it's just not coming to me today. But that's
Treta Yuga.
Treta Yuga. Was that correct, Leela Mandri?
Yeah.
Treta Yuga?
Yeah. Sometimes it is said that, the Dwapara Yuga and Treta Yuga are like they go back and forth. But yeah, Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and Kali.
And Treta Yuga is deity worship, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
And wait a minute.
Okay.
Satya was meditation. Then it's Treta Yuga, correct? That's the next Yuga?
No.
Yeah, Dwapara.
You're kidding. I've always thought that Dvapara was right.
Actually, the orders, sometimes they say it is mixed up. Sometimes Treta comes first and sometimes Dwapara comes first. So both are correct.
Okay. Wow, that's something I just learned. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically this was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's progenitation going on, progenitor generating the entire population. So this was pretty early on. Okay, so in text 35, the demigods who had been performing sacrifice, I guess they finished their yagna, their 1,000-year sacrifice, and they decided they took bath at the meeting of the Ganges and the Yamuna after the yagna, and that type of yagna is called avabrita snana, and thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their own respective abodes. So apparently their yagna was what, it gave them purified hearts, so that's a good thing. So here we have in this purport, what I got out of it was that pretty much that that worship of the demigods, although we should always respect the demigods, worship of demigods is not necessary, but rather we should be worshiping the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. Let's see what, um, because lots of times materialists will worship the demigods, and their motive is not pure. What they're trying to do is they're trying to gain some benefit, some material benefit. And the Bhagavad Gita, those people are called Nasti Buddhis, or persons who have lost their senses, or their sense or intelligence. Let's see what else. And so Srila Prabhupada in the purport compares this worship of the demigods for the purpose of some material benefit to be likened to bribery. Someone who approaches a government servant and bribes them, it's what you're doing is you're paying for an outcome. And that's somewhat like someone who goes to the demigods. They're, through their worship, through their yagna, they're expecting some kind of benefit out of it. And so, that's not a bona fide way to get the things that that we want. What we need to do rather is we need to serve the Lord, and if He so desires, He will, without asking, He will see what's in our hearts, and if He feels that this is something that He wants to bestow, He'll do so. Okay, and so at the end of the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada says that the regulative principle is to worship the Supreme Personality Godhead. That worship of the demigods is indirectly worshiping the personality of Godhead, but it's not regulated. And not only is it not regulated, it's only partial, because the demigods themselves, they're not the supreme. They're just parts and parcels of the whole. And so if one were to water the root of the tree, all the parts of the tree will flourish. So in that metaphor, Krishna is, if you give to Krishna, if you worship Krishna, then everybody, including the demigods, including all the parts and parcels, the jivas, everybody will benefit. So better to approach the Supreme Lord, who is the whole. He's the absolute truth. And so he also made another comparison. If you were to supply food to the stomach, all the limbs of the body, the hands, legs, fingers, are all nourished. You would not go to your hand and start forking food into your hand that has no, it does not reap any any results there. So better to feed the stomach, and from the stomach, everything will grow and be sustained. So he says, Srila Prabhupada says that worship of the demigods is irregular and also disrespectful to scripture. In this yuga, the yagna is to all intelligent persons. What they're to do is simply chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when Lord Vishnu is satisfied, all the demigods who are the parts and parcels of the Lord are also satisfied. So, what does this mean to me? I guess I actually, right before I started coming to the Chicago temple, I actually was I was chanting to Shiva. Om Namo Shivaya, excuse me. And so, although I don't know if this is incorrect, maybe Leela Manjari can give, because I truly believe that Lord Shiva, like I mean, I didn't know much. I still don't know much, but I was just checking out different mantras, and I used to like daily just put it on like YouTube and just over and over and over and over again, just chant along with the YouTube, and did a little bit of research on Shiva. And so, although he's not the ultimate, he's not the absolute truth, I do feel I feel appreciation to Lord Shiva, because truly I believe that that he like brought me to Krishna. I really believe that um he's the reason, he kind of, I don't know, that's just my feeling. And yes, all this the arguing going back and forth throughout this chapter, and name calling, etc. All I have to say is that I feel that just the quality of our chanting is very important. And when I chant nicely, my mind does not go to the faults of the devotees. I can tell right off if I'm like when these things come to mind, fault finding, I say to myself, okay, I need to focus more on my chanting, because it does have a direct effect on my consciousness. So, so that's it. That's what I have to say. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Manasiganda. It's interesting. I would have never thought. Now, it might seem like something very natural. Let's put it this way. I never thought that the demigods would be such a big issue, but now I'm understanding from listening to different different classes that we have, that a lot of people in India worship so many demigods. They're just really into this, and that's why I think Prabhupada brings it up so much. He has to constantly let us know that if we serve, the Lord, the demigods are included. And I think that's might be very hard for some people in India who've been doing this for a long, long time. Like I know that Ruchi Mataji mentioned something about her family. I think they're big worshipers of Lord Shiva, I believe. Now don't quote me on that, but I believe that she mentioned that in class. I hope I'm right. Yeah, and I know she is. She told me she's a big, worshiper of Lord Shiva. And although he's very exalted, we know he's not the ultimate truth. But yes, he is a very, very exalted devotee of the Lord and Vaishnava. It was hard for me to see that in this chapter, believe it or not, because of all this cursing and counter cursing. I think his behavior of him walking out and not reacting was very Vaishnava in his behavior. But I didn't, I had not known a lot about Shiva before. So it just seemed, you know, I didn't understand him until it was explained to me that yes, he takes on the lowest cases that are out there. He helps them greatly. Um, lower than Shudras, and what do they call them? Chandalas, I think.
Mhm.
He
Right.
he takes on the lowest of the low. He even helps the ghosts. He helps all these different entities. And so yes, he has. So I was thinking, oh well, then he's not so high. It didn't until the other Mataji, I forget her name. She comes on. She's Indian bodied. She gets on here. She
Archana.
explained
Yeah.
what's her name?
I thought it was Archana that said it.
Archana. Yeah.
Hmm.
When she started explaining, that Shiva's position was very high, but that the Lord had um, ordered Shiva to do this as service. Okay, then it made sense to me because he is a servant of the Lord, and the Lord ordered him to do that kind of service in the material world, and so he was just doing his service. But he's totally on it. He's totally uh, detached and transcendental to that service. And and I thought, well, why is that so important? Because um, people are on different levels of different levels of consciousness, and he just like when it was explained about Lord Buddha, he he came to teach this nonviolence. Okay, but he was not, Buddhists. If you look at Buddhism, they're all they're all Mayavadis. They're impersonalists, and so that's where I had gotten confused. But then Archana explained to me also that even Lord Buddha was given a particular service by the Lord, but these are devotees of the Lord, very exalted also. In fact, yeah, Lord Buddha was an incarnation of the Lord, so he had a very high position, and not just position. He um, he was given that service, and so he performed the service. So I guess I'm understanding a little bit more about Lord Shiva now, that he had this particular service, but he is extremely exalted and is a pure, he's a devotee, pure devotee of the Lord. He didn't seem, I didn't feel he until you really read all of this very thoroughly, and I had never studied anything about Lord Shiva before. So from reading this chapter, it just didn't seem he was so exalted until all of this got explained to me. Now I'm sure as we go along, I'll understand better, because there are
I
going to
think
be more talks with Lord Shiva.
I think he's an example of how not to judge a book by the cover. There
Mm,
he is. He's got long dreads and he's got ash on his
yeah,
body, and all he does is sit and meditate. I mean, but he meditates on the Lord. He meditates on Krishna, and
exactly.
and the benefit is that that he does not care for worldly things. I mean, he is the one who does the dance at the end of time, and the dance that causes the demolition of the universe. He is, he's very high up there in that that's his service. He's doing that for the Lord. He's bringing on the end of time. So yeah. So not to judge
Yeah,
a book by its cover.
it's fascinating to me. It's like the Lord sometimes has to give these services that are not, sometimes not so pleasant. He's involved in the annihilation, right? Of the
Mhm.
universe, of the cosmos, but that's
Right.
his service. So some of them are not always the most pleasant type of services, if you know what I mean. But that is his service. It's like Yoga Maya. I mean, she's pure illusion, but she's a pure devotee.
Right.
And her service is to put us into illusion. That's her service. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's making a lot more sense to me. It's making more sense. I just, yeah, it's pretty
It just makes me
fascinating.
it just makes me think also of, like, in the temple. I've heard numerous lectures about, it doesn't matter what your service is. It doesn't matter if you're pujari or mopping the floor. It's all service and it's all for the Lord. And so, eh, such an exalted devotee of the Lord Shiva, yeah, you're right. He has something that's probably not too pleasant, but I mean, he's doing it for the Lord, and we're supposed to be equipoised, and it doesn't matter, if what whatever we're doing it for the Lord, and we're doing it for His pleasure, to fulfill what He wants.
So,
Yeah, and Arjuna with you know going into battle against his own family members. Um, Yeah,
yeah.
that's a big thing,
Oh, you mean Arjun, yeah,
Yeah, Arjuna. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Arjuna.
Oh, I was just, yeah. I know that, but I have to sit here. There are so many different leelas and stories and demigods, and to know their positions. For me, this is, I'm learning this later in life. This is very, very fit. Well,
Hmm.
we all are. Both of
Yep,
us are.
exactly. Both
It's
of us.
pretty fascinating to me, and I have to put all the pieces together. Sometimes I don't put them together all at once, and
Hmm. I hear you. Same here.
really, okay, I'm not alone in this.
No, you're not alone in this, Mataji.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, but that's
it's all
all.
fascinating.
Very nice, another nice chapter. Learning a little bit, and learning about Daksha, and learning, the whole story about Lord Shiva and his wife, and all of these things, and how she left her body. And wow, I think that the relationship between the father and him was so bad that she just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
It had to
Yeah.
have been pretty bad for someone to leave their body.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's all I have, Mataji,
Same
unless you had
here.
something further.
Same here.
It's nice to connect. And so
Yeah, we
tomorrow,
missed you.
suppose,
We missed you in chanting today, this morning.
oh, I'm so sorry. Whatever. I got up a
Yeah.
little bit later, and I was like, you know what? I got to do some things here. And I just said, I'll get on Guru's class. And then I chanted, I chanted all
Mm-hmm.
my rounds. But
Good.
once in a while, that'll happen with me. Sometimes I just can't get up. I feel like I need, a lot of sleep to be strong.
Right. Oh, in these times, it's important. It's to me, it's just like, make sure I go to bed early enough. That's what it's all about. If I can get to bed 8:30ish, 9 o'clock, I'm good to
See, and I
go.
don't
But
do that.
I
I
know.
don't do that. No, I can't get up. I mean, I'm getting up for the most part all the time.
Yes, you
It's
are.
just
I
one
hear
day,
you. I hear you. Mhm.
one day here or
Hear you.
there, I can't, sometimes can't do it. I either, and I wasn't feeling bad today, physically or anything, but I think my system just requires a lot of sleep. I know they say that in Vaishnava, in our Krishna conscious life, you shouldn't sleep too much, but with this autoimmune thing I have, I do require it. I mean, doctors have told me I have to sleep a lot to recover.
Yeah, I don't know how Srila Prabhupada did that.
I
I
don't
mean, he
know.
just had a couple hours of sleep each night.
It was just not
Bizarre.
ordinary. Nobody can do that. That's ordinary.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. He just was amazing. Anyway, okay, so it's time, I guess. It's 6:05 now. It's
Okay,
time for
next
us to
week.
get off. It was nice chatting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, and same for Leela Manjari there.
Mhm.
Srila
Krishna,
Prabhupada
Srila
ki
Prabhupada ki jai.